The Road to Autonomy is presented by the Road to Autonomy Index. The Road to Autonomy Index is a rules-based equity benchmark index that measures the performance of a basket of global companies that are involved in the development and commercialization of autonomy. Institutional investors and fund managers are watching megatrends that are shaping investment opportunities today. These megatrends are creating thematic investment ideas and opportunities for forward-thinking investors. We believe that one of the biggest megatrends today is autonomy. That's why we created the Road to Autonomy Index, the world's first and only pure-play index to track the thematic investment opportunity in autonomy. Follow the Road to Autonomy Index on your favorite finance app by simply typing in the ticker Autonomy. To learn more about the Road to Autonomy Index, visit roadtoautonomy.com/index. Hello and welcome to the Road to Autonomy. I'm your host, Grayson Brulte. On today's episode, we're absolutely honored to welcome Joanna Buttler, head of the Global Autonomous Technology Group at Daimler Truck North America. Joanna, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Grayson. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. You know this, our listeners know this, but Daimler is a leader in autonomous trucking. You build some of the world's greatest chassis for the traditional human-driven trucks, and you're doing the same thing with your autonomous-ready chassis, and you have the Cascadias. You're doing really, really good. You have a market share approaching 50%. Perhaps in autonomy, you can have one approaching 70%. We'll get into that today. To kick things off, Joanna, how is Daimler Truck North America approaching autonomy?
Yeah, so first of all, let me tell you that we see autonomous as one of the biggest opportunities for us as a company, so Daimler Truck, but also for the industry and for society. You know, if you think about today, it's about a $900 billion market, the trucking industry, and we will be able to tap into that with those solutions. Our goal ultimately is really helping our customers managing their business more efficiently, improving their bottom line so they can move freight more efficiently, safer, ultimately get the goods to where they have to go in a better, safer, more cost-effective way. And that will benefit all of us. You know, hopefully all of us will see the benefits from that through lower cost, less accidents on the road, you know, and really the freight demand will be answered with this technology. And I'll get a little bit further into that later. What's also important to know is that we are targeting level 4 autonomous driving, which means under certain circumstances that are defined as the operational design domain, the autonomous ready Cascadia with the self-driving software can operate without any human intervention. So this is a tool, this is a vehicle that never sleeps, never gets distracted, never gets in a hurry. And that's where the safety aspect comes in. But also that's where the ability to answer to higher freight demand comes in, because you will ultimately have a vehicle that can operate virtually 24/7. So asset utilization will be significantly improved by that. So we say we want to benefit everyone, so our customers, our shareholders, and society. And how we approach this, it starts really with a clear strategy. And we communicated that at the early beginnings when we embarked on this autonomous journey in 2019. We acquired a majority stake in a company called Torc Robotics. I think a lot of the listeners are familiar with this company. And what we said at that point is we are embarking on a focused use case. So it's hub to hub on highway, long distances, US first. And that was the first step, identifying the right use case. Then you go and identify what's the right technology for that use case. You need a solid platform, that's the vehicle. You need the right software development partner. That's where Torc Robotics comes in. And you need the right ecosystem partners to enable the operation of autonomous vehicles and the infrastructure that will make sure that our customers can actually deploy this technology within their current logistics operations. And that brings me to, I would say, probably one of the most important aspects, which is working hand in hand with our customers as we develop, but also deploy this technology, understanding customer needs, how this technology will ultimately make their business better, how does trucking actually work, and how and where would autonomous trucks be plugged in is important. Where does freight move is important. So we're learning a lot through our customer councils. And I think they appreciate being brought in early on as well. And then the basis and the non-negotiable is always safety. So doing this in a safe and reliable manner will ultimately dictate also the market readiness. And it's important for us that we build that trust with the public and other stakeholders, that we do this in a responsible manner.
Trust is paramount. Well, everything you said, you could throw that aside. If you don't have trust, you don't have anything. And
absolutely,
as an industry, we have to come together and figure out a way how to develop that trust with the public, because as you alluded to, autonomous trucks are going to have a lot of really great societal benefits. It's going to help lower this nasty, stubborn thing called inflation that was never transitory. It's going to create jobs. It's going to create economic stimulus. Think about this. A lot of the traditional over-the-road drivers, they're gone for long periods of time. And now perhaps in the future, those individuals will go on, say, 100-mile, 200-mile, and they're going to go home at night with their families. And then on the weekends, they can go to their kids' baseball game, or they can go to church on Sunday, be part of their community. So now they're going to be home, and because the way the technology is designed from the economics, they'll be able to make more money. Then they can invest in their local community. And think about the economic stimulus that costs. Now they're creating jobs. That's a really big positivity there. They're living a healthier lifestyle. They're happier. And they're creating jobs. You have this roughly 43 to 47% market share right now in the trucking industry for the trucks. You have access to world-renowned fleets who are and shippers, your customers. How are they thinking about autonomy? Are they calling up, Joanna, we need to put a plan together? What's Daimler thinking? What do those conversations look like?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, having those conversations early on is extremely important. And I would say, first of all, they envision this technology bringing those benefits I was just mentioning. So we're not just making this up. I think this comes out of the conversations that we have. And what I just recently heard was that, of course, safety is a huge driver as well, but then also that aspect of the asset utilization, which is a big pain point. We did an internal study where we looked at dwell times and standing times, and ultimately figured out that one truck stands almost 50% of the time. It's not really in use. So when trucks don't move, freight and goods do not get where they should be. Someone is waiting for, I don't know, their baseball bat, and our customers are not making money, and ultimately we won't be making money because they're not getting the right use out of a fairly expensive asset. So I think it's going to be critical to also prove those unit economics together with them. I think they believe in it, but then also seeing is believing, and running early pilots together with them is a critical component of how to do that. So we also hear, you mentioned that, we have the main market share in the Class 8 on-highway market with about 60% there. And they trust our current products, and they trust that the future product, the autonomous ready Cascadia with the Torc solution or another partner, will just be as safe and reliable and high performing as our current product. So that's a good basis to start from. So now we have to live up to that trust, and that is absolutely how we're approaching that together with them. So the first step is understanding their business, gathering their insights, and then together drawing what a rollout strategy, a commercialization path could look like, doing that in a phased approach.
The drivers I speak to, the professional men and women that drive, they love driving the Cascadias. They rave about them. Mm-hmm. They're comfortable. They enjoy them. The engineers I speak to on the other side enjoy working on the Cascadia. So you have both sides of the house that really like your product. You know this. Our listeners know this. You're the most in-demand company for an OEM deal. I'm sure your phone probably rings all day where you make up funny voicemails. I'm not here. Sorry, not talking today. You do funny, silly things because everybody wants to date Daimler and eventually get married to Daimler. So you talked about commercialization. We follow investments here on this podcast. At Daimler Truck Capital Market Day 2023 in July, it was publicly announced that autonomous trucks were a strong strategic pillar, and that autonomous trucks had the potential to deliver 3 billion euros in revenue to Daimler Truck by 2030. It's been publicly stated that the official launch for autonomous trucks for Daimler is scheduled for 2027. So economic business, How is Daimler planning to ramp up autonomous operations over those 3 years to meet your financial target? It's a target that I believe that you can meet. You have a lot of analysts. Guggenheim, for example, thinks that you're going to meet it. I think, I'm not an analyst, but I don't give investment advice, but I think you're going to hit it. So how are you ramping up for that?
Absolutely. Yeah, let me hone in on this a little bit. I'm not going to share the whole spreadsheet calculation, how we get to that number. So I hope you will understand that. But starting maybe what we are addressing, I mentioned it at the beginning, $900 billion trucking business is kind of like, so that's where you start off. And then if you think about early adopters that we are targeting in the first ramp up phase, these are our top 30 customers, which make up about 10% of that. So, now you're like at $90 billion that you can tap in. Now pair this with a technology that ultimately with every mile that we run autonomously will generate, again, economic benefits for our customer and hence also revenue for us. Not divulging all the detailed numbers, but I think with that in mind, you can solve the equation, I would say, how we get to the 3 billion euros at the end. We envision that at the early market introduction, like we've seen with other new technology, take the automated manual transmission for the Class 8 market or advanced driver assistance systems, that we'll see a slow ramp up maybe in the early years as we are proving out the technology. Our customers, they are running the numbers and they will ultimately tell us that we did it right and that it's performing the way it should. And once we have proven that, we really believe it's going to be like a hockey stick adoption, because why wouldn't you want to get into this technology that will save you significantly cost of ownership and helps to offset capacity constraints and helps you to run your operation safer and more efficiently. So, the combination of having a great product, proving out the unit economics, and having a plan that obviously has a transition period baked in is how we get to that figure.
I won't push you on the economics, but I will say this and ask for this. So how about for 2024 Daimler Truck Capital Markets Day, you invite me and I sit down with your CFO and we go through the numbers after the presentation. And I'll push him, not you. How's that sound?
You will be invited, and I think you will love what you see. You probably will challenge us why it's only 3 billion.
See, we got a bull. And that's what we need in this market. We need a bull who believes in autonomy, because autonomy is good for the economy. I think it's going to help to usher in the autonomy economy. When you look at your peers across the board, your OEM peers, there's divergent models. One of your peers, Volvo, for example, is going Volvo Autonomous Solutions through Volvo Transport. And it's been mixed messages in the marketplace, to say the least, of how they're approaching it. You're taking I'm going to call it a delicate balance approach to rolling out autonomy for not losing your market share in Class 8. What is the business model when you eventually introduce and commercialize autonomous trucks that Daimler is going to introduce to the market?
So, I'm not sure if we're taking a delicate approach or just, like a transformational approach, in a sense of we want, first of all, provide a product that helps our customers to run their business better. So it doesn't help me to introduce potentially a solution that will compete with them. So I want to make sure that I am supporting their business and helping them to be also financially more sustainable in long future, which helps all of us. So with that in mind, we are approaching this in phases. As I mentioned, we see an early phase where, let's call it the onboarding phase, right? Where we introduce this technology, when we introduce self-driving on a specific lane, running autonomous freight operations on behalf of our customers, so they can see how it will work and if it works within their infrastructural setup. From there, we will transition to moving the operations to our customers' operations, just the same way they're operating today trucks, and they can choose to buy the truck outright, use all of our financial instruments that we offer through Daimler Truck Financial, and we will offer the autonomous driving software as a service through Torc. And then the last piece of the business model will be the operations, the network. So this is the so-called hubs. Often the question is, so what is a hub? And to be honest, it's not that one singular thing. Think about a hub as the launch and landing location for an autonomous truck on a given lane. And when you add these all up, it makes up an autonomous network. Ideally, those hubs are already existing customer locations, or for those customers that are not operating in a hub and spoke or with large terminals, we will also offer so-called transfer hubs so they can plug into that network. And so you have three components: the sale of the truck or lease of the truck, the subscription for the autonomous driving software, and either the cost or charge for the autonomous hub operations that will ultimately make up the product that the customers will pay for, but also then get the benefit of tapping into autonomous capacity or running autonomous trucks themselves.
Will your customers be able to tap into your bank and finance the whole package? Let's say they're ordering an autonomous Freight Cascadia, they're ordering a subscription to the Torc driver. Will they be able to finance it through one transaction? I'm asking that because we're in a freight recession, as you know and our listeners know, and historically the margins are very tight. You have a very healthy balance sheet. You have a bank. Will they be able to leverage that asset that you have? Is, let's say you have a customer that's not sure they want to put out the capital for this, and they say, okay, we'll do a traditional 3-year lease. We want to bundle it all into one subscription payment, one lease payment. Is that something that you'll work with and explore with your customers because you have the unique ability to self-finance?
Absolutely. So, the beauty of working with us at Daimler Truck is that we offer already a lot of those tools and instruments today. So I will absolutely work with my financial services colleagues to identify what could be bundles and solutions to help our customers ease into this technology, just like we do with our traditional products as well. And offering a one-stop solution is definitely part of the vision when we think about what Daimler's offering is in the market with autonomous driving. And because it's not just a truck and the software, it's ultimately an entire platform that through Daimler, our customers can access, even though we may not provide each individual piece of it. The software, for example, is coming from Torc or from Waymo or other partners. We can orchestrate those transactions. The customer has one singular entry point that gives them access to a full autonomous solutions suite.
From a pricing standpoint, will it be priced per lane? I'll give you some examples. Let's say you have the Phoenix to Albuquerque route, or you have the Dallas to Atlanta, Dallas to El Paso. From a financial services modeling, I'm going to geek out with you. Will it be priced differently because perhaps it's a longer route, it's a shorter route, or the terrain, the cost to develop the autonomous lane, you have to amortize and you have to collect back the repayment on that. Will the pricing change per lane?
So we haven't defined all those details. We're in process of defining ultimately the pricing strategy. But what I can share is that we are envisioning flexible pricing models. So again, more to come on that when we get closer to launch, but I think it makes sense to have that flexibility also baked into our pricing strategy.
Okay, so I'm going to meet with your CFO at your Capital Markets Day, and then when you announce flexible pricing, we're going to have you back on and we're going to geek out on that because the market really wants to know where you're going. So let's just say I'm Acme Fleet. And I call you up. I'm not the guy calling up and saying I want to do an OEM deal with you. I'm the guy calling up and say, hey, I want to do business with you. I want to lease your trucks, buy your trucks. How will the business be managed? Because you have partners. You have Torc, who's developing the virtual driver. You have a partnership with Waymo, despite all the headlines. Their trucking program is still alive. Who manages that transaction? Do I just do a deal with Daimler Truck North America and it's one transaction, or do I have to go to Torc and do a transaction, Waymo do a transaction with you? What does that look like?
So for us, it's important that it's easy to do business with us. So customers can always choose Daimler as their one-stop entry point for a transaction. So you have to envision it that way. Let's say you're a customer and you realize that autonomous driving is for you and you want to understand if the lanes that you're running are approved for autonomous driving. You can go to your sales representative, Daimler Truck North America sales representative, and say, hey, how do I get into this business? And that person can then work in the background with Torc or with me on the vehicle side, and we can package that together and advise the customer whether this is a technology that works for them or not, because that's also important for us. We want to make sure that we're offering something that actually fits our customers' business. And then from there in the background, we can divvy up the different revenue streams. But my vision is absolutely that customers can always go to their trusted sales and support representative from the Daimler Truck North America side to get access to this technology. And that's what we also bring to the table. It's not just the physical assets. It's also the, let's say, sales and support and service network, which starts usually with a human that you know and that you trust, and that you pick up the phone and you say, hey, how do I do that? And so it's a lot about collaboration and conversation that's happening in the background and taking that burden off the customer. So I don't want the customer to go and find out who do I talk to and talk to 5 different people to get into this technology. By that time, I will have lost the deal. They have to be able to go to one person and be able to get that managed through that one channel. Maybe it's more than one person, but at least one channel that they're used to do so. And we are set up that way. We can order through our systems. And again, the background transaction is something that we can manage without having the customer involved in that.
It simplifies the process. Now I'm going to put I'm wearing a lot of hats today. Now I'm going to put on my curiosity hat. I have a good friend that did really well in the QSR business. For our listeners who aren't sure what that is, that's the quick service restaurant industry. So your McDonald's, your Chipotle's, your Whopper Kings. That's what I call Burger King, Whopper King.
I call them fast food restaurants. I have never heard QSR. I thought they were called fast food.
Technical terms. So it's very similar in our industry where it's automated versus autonomous. It's every industry has acronyms. No, it's great to kid. It's really fun. So I'm going to use the Joanna Buttler term here. Fast food restaurants. And then they're controlled by franchisees. So I'm going to apply the fast food model to autonomous trucking. Do you get a franchisee that tries to buy up lanes and buys capacity from you, controls it, and then franchises that out? Are you prepared for somebody that has the bank to do that? So let's just say, I don't know, Phoenix to Dallas. This person's bought all your autonomous capacity, and then he's going to franchise it out to other folks. Have you thought through what those implications will be in the market, and if you would even allow that to happen?
I mean, at this point, we definitely want to have the control over the sales process. But when you talk about, maybe let me give you a different example. We have already today customers that are in the leasing business. So I can imagine, a Penske rider, buying these vehicles and offering autonomous capacity, just like they're offering today trucks that then someone else can equip with a driver and run their business. So some of these models we will still be working on. I don't foresee quite yet the fast food chain model, but it's something we will definitely look at. The goal at the end of the day is to really, how do I ensure I have the right freight capacity in the market and enable my customers to do that?
Absolutely. The backstory on that, besides having the friends in the QSR, as you say, fast food industry, is that Voyage, prior to the acquisition of Cruise, was looking at a franchisee model for different markets. So you're in Portland, Oregon. You become the Portland, Oregon franchisee. I'm in Palm Beach, Florida. I become the Palm Beach franchisee. So it's something, and I saw the economics and saw the spreadsheets. I got behind the curtain, so I saw how it worked. That's why I was curious to ask you there.
Well, maybe you invite me next time and you show me those back-end calculations, and then we'll have another talk if you want to explore that.
Done. Because I think there's a franchise model here, and then when you come to visit me, I will get my QSR friends to sit down with you that owned a lot of these establishments and walk you through the economics. Then you can go back to headquarters. I've learned something. I put my curiosity hat on when I sat down with Grayson and his friends.
But I mean, again, like joking aside, I think what your questions kind of lead to it. The beauty of this technology is it just opens up so many different possibilities and how to run this business and run different business models. I think what I'm trying to say, let's do this step by step, and we will definitely expand on that as we are growing the adoption and as this business grows. And I believe it will automatically drive us to having to find new and more creative ways to run this, again, because the possibilities here are endless, and it will help us not just to bundle the solution, but also help to consolidate freight and reduce maybe empty runs. And what comes out of those opportunities are probably also new models that potentially our customers will figure out, right? And they will come up and say, hey, I think now that I have this tool, I can operate in a much different way. I can optimize my freight operations. I can, again, consolidate better. I can plan my routes much more efficiently. And then that's where we come back in and say, hey, let us help you. We have a good, through our connectivity, connected tracks, we have a visibility of all the freight that's moving. Maybe we can advise you how to best run and optimize your operations. So
that's why your Daimler, the possibilities are endless. The old investment saying you can have the world's greatest product, but if it doesn't have a sustainable business behind it, you're in trouble. You have the sustainable business. You're going to figure out that business model. And I'm going to poke and prod along the years to see that you get to that model so you can retain your market share. Possibilities are endless. And in a December 11th LinkedIn post, you wrote about how autonomous technology will possibly represent the biggest transformation opportunity for the transport industry. I fully agree. In your opinion, why and what do you see?
So again, if we just start, like I said at the beginning, with the product itself being, you're able to run virtually 24/7 with this truck. Oh, yes, you need some downtime for standard maintenance, pre-trip, post-trip inspections, etc. But our customers will be able to get so much more out of that asset. And I think that will drive, again, how they look at their operations and how they optimize their operations. So it starts with just having a better and improved flow of goods. Then, to your image that you created at the beginning, that will have a direct impact on consumers. All of a sudden, I will have more availability of, just-in-time deliveries, for example. I will have potentially lower cost of logistics that will impact also businesses. Through that, that empowers economic growth. My cost of freight goes down and freight movement goes down. Now I can invest that money into innovation, into my people. It will create new jobs or elevate existing jobs. You talked earlier about how the role of the driver or the profile of the driver job might just change, moving more towards a local regional driver job, having much more time with family, a better work-life balance, potentially a higher paid job. And then new roles will be created. These vehicles need inspections, they need a certain oversight. So the traditional dispatcher role might evolve, to being almost a autonomous operator role. So upskilling will happen. Even on the technician side, we are introducing new hardware, new components. These tracks have all these elaborate sensors like LiDARs and radars and cameras. And we will train people on how to work on them, how to replace them, how to repair them. That creates another job profile and specialization. That creates higher paying jobs. And so I really want to dispel kind of the thought here that autonomy will ultimately take or reduce jobs or the workforce. I think it actually will elevate all of us. And in-office jobs, more software development roles will be created. How we go to market, the discussion we just had. Traditionally, we would just say, well, you spec a truck, you sell the truck, you lease the truck, done. We will have to talk and consult and have a much more collaborative approach to how we bring this technology to market much earlier on. We bring on customers in the development process. We reduce complexity by driving towards a solution and not driving towards, complex variations of different options. That will improve how we do business. And then ultimately, not lastly, but most importantly, the safety is going to be extremely critical that we feel like this product can bring by never being distracted or in a hurry or, driven by other external factors. And much more, how do I say, predictability, the predictability of when the freight arrives, the predictability of the routes. I can tailor my operations to, for example, more nighttime driving. I can help remove congestion. I mean, I can go on and on and on, Grayson. I have so many ideas what this can do, but I want our listeners to really understand that when we say it's a big opportunity, it's not just, big opportunity to make more money. Of course, we like that, but it's a big opportunity for all of us as a society. And I want to invite everyone just to stay curious about it and learn about it and really trust that we do that with safety as a non-negotiable. And when this technology is ready to be released, it will have been rigorously tested and validated. And so we can definitely focus just on the business side of it and deploying it in a reasonable manner where it's suited for our customers.
Is that why Daimler Truck developing the autonomous ready Freightliner Cascadia chassis with all their dual redundancy?
So yeah, we believe that you need a very solid platform to enable level 4 driving. And that starts with having redundant components in your vehicle. So all the safety relevant components like brakes and steering, but then also the power network, the power distribution is extremely critical to enable the autonomous technology. So for us, this is really the foundation, and what we're developing, we believe, is currently the benchmark that is out there, because those systems are designed to be able to take over, just like a human driver would take over if there was a failure, and be controlled by the virtual driver, by the autonomous driving software, just like a human driver would control, for example, the brakes. And if there is a situation where we will have to have a fallback scenario, that then the vehicle can be safely put to the side on the road and await a rescue or recovery mission. So that is for us just really the entry point to this technology, having a solid foundation, and that starts with a vehicle platform.
What does that development process look like? Did it start with a whiteboard or CAD drawings? What does the process look like to develop the redundant chassis?
It starts with a long list of requirements. So in total, I think we started off with like around 1,500 requirements that we developed jointly, in this case with Waymo, and now further expanding with Torc, to really identify what are all the systems, what are all the features, what are all the tasks, so to speak, that now a virtual driver needs to take over when there's no human in the cab anymore. And the key systems we're looking at, I already talked about braking and steering, power net, but you also have to look at the entire vehicle. There might be some components like, I don't know, the door control module, who's opening, closing the door locks, the windows, etc. So you really have to take a look at your entire vehicle. And I actually love that about the development of the autonomous ready Cascadia, because not every project gets to really look at the entire vehicle. You introduce a new option and then you're really focused on that particular area. So it's almost like developing a brand new model. So the autonomous ready Cascadia. So it starts with defining your requirements. Then you kind of decompose those into features. So ultimately what is that the vehicle needs to be doing? And that is software features, but that can also be hardware requirements. And then we're working with the traditional tier one suppliers, or we have some areas where we do internal development to ultimately design those systems. Then we implement them in various stages. We start what we call with B sample. So this is like an early prototype, move towards C sample, which is going towards production ready intent, and then D sample is your series production release. So then we go through these different iterations and stages. And each of these, we test, we validate, we learn, we collect issues, bugs, we fix them, put them on the next iteration. And ultimately, when we're ready to launch this product in the market, we will have tested the entire platform to be ready to work with an autonomous driving system. We are also designing it with commonality and scalability in mind. So a lot of the components that are redundant, take, for example, the redundant braking system, are global components. So you would see the electronic brake controller also in a regular truck and not just in a Cascadia. You will see it even in an Actros in Europe. Then this controller basically gets a second version of itself, which is the redundant component that can then take over in case of a failure. So with that, we create economies of scale, and we already prepare for potential rollout globally to other markets and other platforms. And then lastly, while we work with two partners today, Torc and Waymo, we also drive towards designing this platform agnostic towards any level 4 system. Of course, there will always be application work. So I'm not saying there will be no work involved in that, but at least the basics of it should work with pretty much any system. And then also agnostic towards the propulsion technology. Today, we're launching with diesel engines because we're targeting a long haul, long distance use case where you need that range. And so where we're not there yet on the battery electric side, and we don't have fuel cell or hydrogen solutions quite yet. But once that is available, we absolutely want to also offer a zero emissions product that allows our customers to fulfill their sustainability targets and run autonomously at the same time.
You're hedging your bets there with that approach. Will any level 4 developer be able just to purchase that autonomous redundant chassis, or it will be highly curated, controlled? Well, what's that going to look like?
It will be highly curated, controlled. I think the safety aspect of it is too critical that we would just say, order this platform and then do your integration. That's what I mean. Like, application integration work is always necessary, because we want to make sure that we're tuning it to the system, to the level 4 system, and we are ultimately releasing and validating it together with the intended level 4 solution. And it's great because we get to do this right now with Torc and with Waymo, so we know what that process entails.
When you're selling it to a fleet, let's say Acme Fleet or Southwest Fleet, just insert your favorite fleet name here. Is it all the hardware fully integrated off of the factory line? So let's just say this fleet wants to buy 1,000 or at least 1,000 trucks. Is that hardware all built in there? So when that customer takes possession of that truck, everything's ready to go. They basically, I'm going to use very simple terms. They turn on the software, turn on the truck, and away it goes. What does that look like?
Yes, so we're targeting factory installation for all the what we call AD kit, so autonomous driving kit components, with a Torc solution. In the Waymo case, it was a post-factory installation, but with a long-term target to also have it installed in the factory. But yes, we will design and produce everything ex-factory as you would get any other truck. And in the design process, we keep that also in mind. So manufacturability is going to be also critical. And through understanding how we can install these components effectively in takt time in a, let's say, high volume plant, also will help us then later on with the serviceability of the component, because it needs to be easy to replace, to remove, so you don't have a lot of downtime when there is an issue with the system. So it's not just focusing on the new tech, the software development. It's also very traditional design work that we have to do and working cross-functionally across our Daimler Truck organization, whether it's purchasing, manufacturing, engineering, service, aftermarket, to ensure that this is a product that has a long lifetime and is easy to manufacture, easy to service, and easy to operate.
The servicing is going to be key in the maintenance around because that's why I'm really proud of the stuff I started over at SAE, where they're doing the SAE autonomous maintenance, where there's going to be a maintenance standard. So you say Southwest Trucking, Northwest Trucking, East-West Trucking, they're all going to have standard maintenance, and that's going to allow this technology to scale because it's going to allow you as an OEM to sell more. It's going to allow autonomous developers to sell more miles, and it's going to be good for the supply chain because we're not going to have a COVID-induced slowdown in the supply chain anymore because autonomy is going to roll and it's going to shore up the supply chain. So you have two businesses inside of Daimler Truck. You have your traditional truck business and you have your emerging autonomous business, which you lead. How do you see those two businesses complementing each other?
First of all, like you mentioned, I think the traditional business gives us already the foundation to run the new business. The traditional business is run through a network, for example, of dealerships. We can tap into that. The traditional business, to be honest, at this point is funding, the new business. So it is important that we have financial resilience and that we continue our high performance and high market share in the traditional business. So that enables Daimler to ultimately fund new technology and be innovative. And I'm really proud that our company is really standing behind that and makes that investment into innovation where it makes sense and benefits the customer. Vice versa, the new tech, we are implementing new processes. We're doing things potentially a little bit different. We're bringing in the customer earlier. So we're also looking at how can that benefit our traditional business. I don't know that I like the word traditional, but just for the ease of it, our traditional business. Because let me give you just a tangible example. We have started building these prototype vehicles already in our plant. Why? Because we need so many vehicles. We need to rack up a lot of miles. We need to gather a lot of information, real life information. We haven't done that really before. And what does that do? We are learning the processes early on. We are finding quality issues early on. We fix them early on. So by the time this product goes to market, we have hopefully eradicated all the quality issues that we've seen. We have improved our processes, and our customers can rely on that the product that they're getting, while it is fresh and new in the market, has kind of been tested already, not just tested from a design and engineering perspective, but also from a process perspective, because that's what the customers also rely on us for: high quality, good processes. They don't want to call us up and say, what's this? This wasn't typed correctly. They want to ensure, especially something that's so safety critical, that this has been very well validated, and that also goes for the manufacturing process.
The Daimler brand is known for quality. If one of your customers buys a Daimler truck, they know it's a quality truck. They know it's going to be a reliable truck. As I said earlier, they're going to love their truck because that's what they do. They buy a Daimler truck and then they love their Daimler truck. Joanna, overall, how do you see the autonomous trucking industry evolving and shaking out over the next decade? Obviously, we can agree that there's consolidation coming. The Fed now looks like they're going to cut interest rates in 2024. So here comes the big dollars. How do you see the industry evolving and shaking out?
So with autonomous trucks in specific or in general?
Well, how about we do both? This will be fun. We'll start with autonomous trucks and then we'll go in general. How's that?
Well, as I said, I think the next couple of years are still going to be heavily focused on developing, deploying, and learning what this technology can do for us, and then how it ultimately and hopefully improves also our economy. So what we all talked before, we want to see that later on also in the real numbers and not just simulated on a spreadsheet. So that's what we're focusing on. And then from there, I think we will shift a little bit the focus from the, original product development to what are new business models, what are potentially new configurations this can go into: zero emissions technology, shorter haul, different markets, regions, globally. So while we're now very focused on this initial launch with one configuration, highly focused, no distractions, once we have proven it right, I think then kind of also the fun starts, because you can really, you have proven you have a product and it will go through the regular product life cycle processes, and you can see how you can scale it beyond this initial use case. And, when it comes to just how we see us, Daimler Truck North America in general in the future, I think we're really looking confidently to the next year and beyond, even though, we might see some challenges in the market. But what we do really well is prepare for that. It shouldn't come as a surprise when we see potential dips, but we are ready to face those challenges. And we're doing that today. So we're using the good years, so to speak, to be resilient and financially sustainable in maybe the years that are a little bit more downturn. So that's why I have high confidence that we will continue to be not just the market leader, but also continue to provide high profitability and support our customers the best way possible, even through some of the tougher times. And that's the beauty of having trusted relationships. You work with and for each other in the good and bad times. It almost sounds like a marriage. Anyway, with that said, we'll also continue to invest heavily in our future products. Our electromobility suite of products will expand, as well as looking into other propulsion technologies like fuel cell, hydrogen, ICE, etc. So more to come on that. We continue to see the challenges that our customers see today also in the future and potentially rising. Think about the driver shortage, that we are also tackling with this technology. Yes, it fluctuates, and I saw reports where it says it's, maybe not the biggest pain point anymore, but it's the second biggest, and it might come back to the top of right now. The economic downturn is probably the biggest concern for our customers. But, we can tackle that, and we see that still coming. We see still freight overall net increasing, and we can tackle that with our products that we will launch in the future. And and with our zero emissions strategy, we want to make sure we fulfill our sustainability targets and purpose as well. So all in all, as Daimler Truck, we say we want to move at the right speed. We do things for the right reasons and the right way. And this is the mantra that we will follow also in the following years.
Daimler Truck is well managed. It's well managed financially and fiscally responsible, and you build world-class products. And that's where you're going. And I can't wait to see as you take the next step over the coming decade and you launch and really, truly commercialize your autonomous operations. Joanna, this has been fun today. This has been frankly awesome. As we look to wrap up this insightful conversation, what would you like our listeners to take away with them today?
I mean, if you can take away one thing, then please, that autonomy can and will bring great benefits for society. And that's what moves us. If you think about our purpose, we say for all who move the world, or for all who keep the world moving. And that's what we ultimately are here for. And I'm proud that me and my team and our partners can play a role in that purpose. So we want to do that transparently, safely, and ultimately, everything that, we use in our day-to-day activities, like your podcast equipment came on a truck. If you just think about that, trucks play a role in our everyday life and we may not even know it or realize it. And if you can imagine now making that equipment, making that tool, making that vehicle just safer and more efficient, how this will ultimately impact us all. So really looking forward to launching this here in the near future. We said by 2027, we will go to market with it, and we stand behind that. And so,
2027 is going to be an exciting year for Daimler. Autonomy is good for the economy. The future is bright. The future is autonomous. The future is Daimler Truck. Joanna, thank you so much for coming on the road to autonomy today.
Thank you so much, Grayson. Really appreciate it.
If you've enjoyed listening, please kindly rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Want to get in touch? Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Road to Autonomy, or email podcast@roadtoautonomy.com. The Road to Autonomy podcast is produced by the Road to Autonomy LLC. The views and opinions expressed on the Road to Autonomy podcast do not necessarily reflect those views of the Road to Autonomy, its subsidiaries, its shareholders, directors, investors, or partners. The content discussed on this podcast is for informational purposes only. It should not be taken as legal, investment, tax, or business advice. Nothing is a recommendation that you purchase, sell, or hold any security or other investment, or that you pursue any investment style or strategy. The content of this podcast is presented on an as-is basis with no warranties, express or implied, of any kind. Financial mentions about companies in the Road to Autonomy Index and discussions about the Road to Autonomy Indexes are for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon when making any investment decision. Furthermore, an inclusion of security within the Road to Autonomy Index is not a recommendation by the Road to Autonomy Indices LLC to buy, sell, or hold that such security, nor is it considered to be investment advice.